Right, y'all. I am back. Look, so this is what it is today. It's interesting that I was how you look for something. I'm a big searcher on Twitter for things that I've said in the past, or just to see what my thought process was. Right now, y'all, I'm trying to see if I'm if I'm live or not. So just want to make sure everything is copacetic. So I've said something, and I continually say this all the time. As a guy who's been now, obviously, no, I would tell you, I was gonna say I've only been coached by a certain number of coaches, but I've also been coached by some coaches that I didn't believe were good coaches at their position. They could have been great coaches at a lower position. For example, sometimes a coordinator is a great coordinator but won't make a great head coach. Sometimes a great position coach might not make a great coordinator but might make a great head coach. So I say that because I've been coached by I've been fortunate enough through my entire career to been coached by the mass majority of unbelievable football coaches, but more importantly, unbelievable football teachers. So I put more onus on the player than coaches because no matter how good of a coach you are, no matter how good of a teacher you are, if the player can't replicate that on the game field in a live situation and not in a controlled environment, you can be the greatest, but the outcome might not represent how good of a coach you are. So I am all it's hard for me, and that's why I, for instance, go to a lot of film because in the grand scheme of things, I'm pretty sure that guys are not coached to do certain things. And that works in a favor too for a player. Because as Coach Smith used to teach us, or at least how I took it, is that I can teach you the coverages, I can teach you the strengths and the weaknesses. I can teach you all the things on paper. However, I can't make you a playmaker. Only you can go out there and make plays within the framework of the scheme. So I can put you in the right spot, but there's some players who are not. For example, there's some DBs who just can't get interception because they don't know how to color in between the lines. Maybe color a little bit outside to be able to make a play. Because the offensive player, the quarterback knows the elite ones knows what coverages you are in and what the weaknesses are, and they can exploit it. But if you know what the weaknesses are and know how to combat the weakness, sometimes you can fool the quarterback. So for me, player players are more important than coaches. Coaches are very important. But at the end of the day, the result on the field, 90% of the time, comes down to players. It's like weird how an offensive team can run a simple scheme, but exploit a defense. And it's weird how a defense can employ a simple scheme and befuddle an offense. And all it comes down to is the execution of the players. I've said this many times, I'm going to keep saying it. When I first got to Kentucky, Coach Archer was the coach, and we had, I think it was 6 interceptions. Yeah, it was 6 interceptions against Florida. and we ran like 2 coverages. However, the one coverage morphs into many coverages because it's a pattern. It's a pattern read coverage, which means pattern read means that the coverage is dictated off of the routes of the offense. So it looks like something, but if the receivers do this, it morphs into something else. So we ran that coverage probably the majority of the game and confused Terry Dean tremendously. But that coverage worked well because the players executed well and they knew the strengths and weaknesses. And we pretty much only ran a couple coverages in fall football because with a new scheme, Coach Arch was like, I'm going to throw some stuff out. We're going to do what we do best. Which leads me to this. Y'all, I found this as I was searching. I don't know if y'all can read it. I don't know how to zoom in either. Now I'm looking at it, it looks kind of small, but I'm going to read it to you. This quote is from The Athletic by Jeff Howe. It's on this tweet. So I think this is before Liam came. I think he was hired. And I found this quote from Liam. Liam says, it's about players, not plays. I thought I did a decent job of that at Maine. Being here with the Rams, you learn it's truly about the players. Everybody runs a lot of the same scheme. You can dial up some stuff. You can have some concepts every week that might really challenge the defense schematically. But at the end of the day, it's about players. And how can I fit and mold my ideas that I like to the personnel at Kentucky? I might love a play, but if we can't execute it, it doesn't matter. It's really about what players can execute, what they can handle. With those things, I think I have a little less ego with that than I did before. Like, I like this play. It's going to work against this defense. But if we didn't complete it one time in practice all week, I am not going to call it. I might not have had that humility, if you will, a couple of years ago with the National Football League. If we don't execute a play in practice well, we're not going to call it in a game. As part of that, Cohen would implement another tactic common to the NFL. The night before games at Kentucky, he'll ask his quarterback which plays they're comfortable running and which ones should be scrapped. He solicits input from the offensive line for a blocking technique and which routes the receivers are prepared to execute. That dialogue has been fruitful with the Rams. And I've been saying this for so long. And it's hard for some fans to understand that. That's the same thing when Eddie Gran was doing things. And that's why, for me, I'm such an Eddie Gran fan. Because it was obvious that he ran the things that this football team could digest. Because then something out years ago about one drive of Eddie Gran at Cincinnati. That offense looked totally different than the offense we ran after Drew Barker got hurt. Totally different. When Steven Johnson was a quarterback, compared to when Terry Wilson was a quarterback, compared when Sawyer Smith had this brief time at quarterback, totally different offense. When Lynn Bowden went to be a quarterback, totally different offense. The same thing with Brad White. You can only run what your players can run. I never forget, was that last year? No, because Trevin played 2 years ago when Trevin Wallace was healthy at the beginning of the year. We were blitzing and sending him a lot with D-Jack behind him, covering up his mistakes. That defense was totally different from week 1 to about week 4 than it was the rest of the season. You can only run what the players on the field can run. It will, I'm telling you, coaches hate it, but the good coaches do what's right for the team. Not as Liam said, that little that little portion of taking your ego at the door. It's simple. We can all want to do things on paper. We can all try to be air raid offense. But if you don't have the receivers, quarterback, offensive line that's able to run it, it's going to be an issue. I was in the Rams camp, Mike Martz' first year with the Rams when they went to the Super Bowl and won. Mike Martz seemed like a genius. And not to say he wasn't. He is a great offensive coach. You can't check out a place. Trent Green went down in a preseason game against the Rams. Marvin Harrison cheap shot him, blew out his knee. And what's up, man? What's up, D Gomes? And we got the experience of Kurt Warner. I really believe that it was match made in heaven with Kurt Warner because Kurt Warner didn't have any of the habits from being a starting quarterback. So he morphed to what Mike Martz wanted. So I want you to understand, Mike Martz, those years were unbelievable. When Mike Martz went to the Bears with Jay Cutler and that offensive line, the offense wasn't as successful. No, D-Go, we're not talking about football. We're talking about Liam quote. That offense wasn't that successful. And I always say, so did the coach forget how to coach? No, he didn't. The players didn't fit what he wanted to do. It comes down to the players fit and the coach being able to check his ego at the door and run things that the player can run. So even though, for example, let's say on defense, I know Brad White catch a lot of flack from some people. When we had guys who can play a little more man, we played some man. When you don't have guys who can hold up in man-to-man, you can't run it. If you don't have, pass protection make coverages weak. I'm not to understand. Pass protection, pass pro, make coverages susceptible and weak. The better pass pro you have, the worse a coverage is going to look. I don't care what coverage it is. Don't care. It can be the greatest coverage in the world against that play. Pass pro can defeat a coverage just by itself, not the quarterback. Pass pro. Now, if you have a good quarterback with good pass pro, a defense is at the mercy of the offense. It really comes to, do you have playmakers? Does the offense have wide receivers who drop the ball? Or as a defense, do you win on first down? So no matter what you call, if you call a blitz and the offensive line can hold that blitz for 3 seconds, DB's in trouble. One of those DBs is not going to win that matchup, and it's going to be a completion. If you play zone, the quarterback has more than 4 seconds, somebody's going to deter from the route they had originally, which we as corners, a safety supposed to read route combination. So there's if the number 2 receiver does this, you kind of have an idea of what's number 1 going to do. But once that happens and a quarterback can hold the ball a little bit longer, now receivers can slide zones. They can find windows. They can find open green grass. So if the quarterback has time, he's going to defeat man or zone. It doesn't matter. So that's a player deal. It doesn't matter what defensive coach call. If those guys can't execute, we're in trouble. There's many instances. I'll go to this on the locker Wednesdays. Tonight, it's Wednesday. Tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We were against Florida. Fred Taylor, Jock Green, Reed Anthony, Ike Hilliard, one of the best skill position offenses I think I've ever seen. They had a situation where they motioned Fred Taylor out, and we that week schemed to do something that we don't normally do on our defense. Schemed it, we schemed it, we schemed it, we practiced, we practiced, we practiced. It was ran perfectly. In a game, we short circuited and didn't do what we did in practice. We did what we usually do. And Jock Green had a one-on-one with one of our linebackers touchdown. The fans would say that's a bad call. But the players within the locker room knew that was a player issue. The same thing with Clemson last year in the bowl game. That was a player issue. I dissected it many times. That was a player issue. That was not the call. Because the interesting thing is, we fans remember the bad plays, but we also rushed 3 and played the exact same coverage and stopped Clemson on 3rd and long. But you remember only the ones where we were not successful. So, players. Coaching matters. At the end of the day, a bad player can make an elite coach look like shit. Just remember that. Bad player can make an elite coach look like shit. Same thing. We played Tennessee at Tennessee this year. Right? I'm trying to remember, y'all. Whatever the year we played Tennessee at Tennessee, and we still had Keydron Carrington Valentine. Look at the play that they scored on. If you look at the play previous, they tried the same route combination, because Tennessee route combinations are really simple because they're really trying to find green grass. Look at the play previously. Keydron and that field side played the coverage perfectly. Then when they ran it to the boundary with Carrington Valentine and that group, they ran it good one time. Then they ran it like shit the next, and they scored. And that was not on J.J. Weaver. And that was not on the coach to put J.J. Weaver there. When they spread you out, J.J. Weaver has to detach. That was on the corner. Trying to do, as I said earlier about coloring a little bit outside the line, he colored to the damn end of the page. And when you color to the end of the page, they found it and they scored. Yeah. I just showed you the Liam tweet. I will attach it to this this live so you can read it if you want to. I want y'all to understand what you see on the game, on game day. Sometimes, not sometimes, it's majority on the player and the coach. And that's good or bad. When we score a touchdown, everything looks great. That's the player's execution. Sometimes fans complain about not getting the ball to the tight end. A lot of times that's on the quarterback. The majority of the time that's on the tight end not getting open. Think about that for a second. You can't force it to the tight end if it's not open. There were situations this year where Brock could have thrown it to a wide open receiver, but he chose to throw to somebody else. Quarterbacks has the end decision, the final decision on who to throw to. Even though we go into a game and say, this is your number 1 option, this is your number 2 option. Sometimes the defense takes away the number 1 option. Sometimes you got to go to another. It's on the quarterback to be able to react, decide who now is the new number 1. There's a lot of intricacies during this game that can make a good coach look bad. Even though what he called was the perfect call for a certain situation. Guys between that 53 and a third, 120-yard rectangle, they have to determine and they have to execute when the other team doesn't do exactly what you think they're going to. If they do what you want to do, then it's easy. It's when they adjust and do something that looks differently than what you pre-snap saw. It's not as easy and it's not as simple as we make it. Even sometimes when I break the thing down, you have to also look at what side the quarterback is looking for, because the backside could be wide open, but he didn't choose to look that side. He can choose to look front side. What I do is sometimes just show you where the options are. All right, y'all. That's all I got. Hope y'all have a good rest of your day. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow or soon. Like I said, I'm trying to become better at this. Hey, and if you're watching, go to my YouTube page. I think if you get to 500 subscribers, you are able to do something. I learned that yesterday. I'm like 4 subscribers short. If you're on Twitter, go on over to YouTube and follow your boy Driving with Styles. Find me there. Hit the subscribe button. You ain't even gotta watch me on YouTube. Just go out there and give me 4 more subscribers so I get to 500, and I'm gonna read up on what I can do once I get to 500, because I really don't know what I can do. But give me the 500, and I'm gonna be more consistent. Hopefully, I can be more consistent the whole year, not just the first week of the new year. So doing my best, and